Godfather. Pulled up to the scene in a 65 Bentley, dripped in Brioni, China doll with me, looking like a supermodel. Oh, what a feeling. 25 years old, 25 million. Today's the audition for the Godfather part. My life's already a movie, so when do I start? I walk up in Patsy's East 119th Street. Fat Tony Salerno gets a kiss on the cheek. I know my way around, not my first.
Speak softly loud and hold me warm against your heart. I hear your words, the tender trembling moment starts. We're in a world our very own, sharing a love that only few have ever known.
Welcome, everybody. It's time for another episode of Hollywood Godfather. And as if you listened last week, this is a continuation about the tailor, AJ Pratt. And before we go any further, let's introduce Jeannie Raymond. How are you, my darling?
Hi, thank you. I'm great. So happy to be here.
Perfect. And our friend, compadre, writing host, and everything else, Mr. Pat Picciarelli, please.
Good evening, everybody. And I'll tell you, I'm so happy to be anywhere.
Well, like anybody is.
Yeah, exactly.
when you give it thought like that, yes.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah, right now.
Well,
Happy to be
lead us on our journey tonight.
Okay. So for those of you who didn't tune into last week's show, tune in. No, I'm only kidding. Just to give you in 24 words or less, we're talking about AJ Pratt, who went from rags to riches, first in the tailoring business, custom-made suits, and we left off when he was about to enter his second profession, drug dealing, on a large scale. And we left off talking about AJ's uncle Howard, who Johnny knew. So Johnny plays a part in AJ's Vegas experience, not the drug dealing part, but the celebrity part. But he also knew Uncle Howard. Uncle Howard apparently was a grade B comedian who would open acts for celebrities doing shows, and he had a little bit of a drug Jones. He liked his drugs. He liked his weed. AJ started in the weed business, but then they progressed. And we talked about parallels between AJ's life and Gianni's life, and it was uncanny, the similarities in their lives as far as how they had their first mentor, the heartaches and the tragedies they had in their lives, and their personalities being similar. And here's where the great divide comes when AJ decides he's going to go in one direction, and in retrospect, at the end of his life, he realized he made a mistake. So, Jeannie, you want to start us off here?
Well, AJ went from being big into making all these clothes. Everyone always referred to him as the tailor, which I think he was very proud of because he was so successful at it and so creative. And then it was Howard. What's the uncle's name? Hardin. And he ended up sticking together. That was his wife, Linda Lou's uncle, right. Who, it was kind of funny. And even AJ said that in the beginning, her parents weren't awfully fond of him. And when they talked about getting married, they said, let's send the uncle over to take a look at this guy and see if we want this guy around our daughter. And so he vouched for him. The uncle did. And they said if they'd have known what trouble we were going to get into down the line, they maybe wouldn't have sent him over to give me the kiss of approval. Oh, wow. But those two ventured on a very big career in running drugs. And
they started out where a lot of dealers start out with weed.
Right.
And being the consummate businessman that he is, he wasn't just selling crap. He was selling good weed. There's back in the 70s and 80s, there was a strain of weed called Sensimilia. It was, in fact, this is what we had in Vietnam. Very powerful, as compared to the rest of marijuana back then, which was about 5 to 10% THC, which is the part of weed that gets you high. And it was the strength of it was 5 to 10%. Sensimilia was about 30 to 40% purer and gave you a bigger kick. Now, just for comparison purposes, now 30 to 40% THC in weed is common, and you can get up to it if you're doing dabs, which is oil. You can get 95% strength. So, I mean, the weed industry has changed, but back then, Sensimilia was what you wanted, and that's what AJ was selling. And he saw what he was making, and they were making a lot of money. But the problem with selling weed is you open yourself up to scrutiny and possible arrest because of the sheer volume that you have to sell to make a lot of money. I don't know, an ounce, I think, was going for $400, but a pound was going for something like $4,000, and that's a pound. And you could sell a couple of 8 balls of coke, which was an eighth of an ounce, for $4,000. And so he basically introduced Vegas to coke.
Well, the interesting thing too, that we should interject, in his tailoring life with Savellas and a lot of people, he was making clothes for major mobsters. And if they knew he was doing that, he wouldn't have survived very long.
No, and that was when the no drug rule actually meant something.
Well, not only that too, but with Vegas, like most small cities, which that was, the police department, all that, well, they were friends. But the FBI was constantly trying to get the mob hooked on something, and drugs was the biggest thing they could do. And if they knew what they were doing, their friend was doing, that's what brought basically a lot of guys down. And I know for a fact the Savellas would have whacked them no matter what they thought of them.
Yeah.
That's another, I don't know how he kept that secret. Even to me, because to me, I never had drugs around me. You couldn't bring it in my house. And any performer, even Sammy Davis Jr., I told him when he came to my house, do something with yourself, but don't start passing it around like a lot of them do. Mm-hmm. And I remember the fashion. This got so crazy in the 70s.
The nail.
Well, not only the fingernail. Then they started wearing gold spoons.
Yeah, right.
Gold razor blades as a piece of jewelry to announce that they were cokeheads. And
by the way, as an aside, did you ever go to Studio 54?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay, it was for those of you who didn't know what Studio 54 was, it was the club in Midtown Manhattan for years, and everything went on. Everything went on in that club. Whatever you wanted to do, with whoever you wanted to do.
There was rooms to go. Yeah,
I'd go there with the Yoko Ono when we were guarding her. We would go to Studio 54 occasionally. That said, they had a giant Coke spoon that was suspended from the ceiling. It must have been about 10, 12 feet long, and it was a spoon. No, nobody said it was a Coke spoon, but it was suspended from the ceiling, and every 20 minutes, it would lower. And that was your cue to take another hit. And everybody started snorting right out in the open. But that was that giant Coke spoon. Like, nobody knew what that was. Here comes the spoon. Let's take another hit. Like, Coke was so out in the open, and everybody was.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was fashionable.
But it was known as a rich man's drug.
Yeah,
because a gram was $100, and a gram is next to nothing. But I mean, if you're heavy into coke, you do go through a gram in 2 hours, if that long. But plus, it's a very social drug. You don't do coke by yourself. You got to have somebody to talk to because you never shut up. And you're always passing it around, and it goes. So AJ was introduced to coke. I think to a showgirl, Jeannie. Do you recall how he was introduced to coke?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. No, he's had so many fascinating stories. I do know, it was ways to help when he was in Vegas, and there were all those, dancing gals and getting worn out and tired. I do know it did help him on his sales by saying, I know a way we can wake you up, but I can't recall right off the top of my head. And that's all right, because we want people to read the book. We can't tell them everything, but I do not recall
Well,
how
when he was introduced to it, he said, "There's money to be made here."
Well,
Because
that,
a weed high mellows you out. A coke high speeds you up, makes you extremely social. All the barriers come down. Somebody once said,
"You have no inhibitions."
No inhibitions. And this is a quote. Somebody once said to me, cocaine enhances your personality. So I said, what happens if you're an asshole? It's true. I mean,
only you would say. I love it.
It just expanded your horizons, and by the way, and you just can't do coke. You have to drink at the same time, because coke speeds you up, and you have to maintain that balance. So the bartenders loved it. I mean, everybody was going nuts, and AJ made a lot of money. I mean, it's literally truckloads of money.
Oh my God, yeah.
So
what? I would like to share this with our audience, because to me, I thought it was so unique how he got involved with Pablo Escobar.
There you go.
Pablo Escobar was going to run for public office, and he had enough followers in both everywhere because he was so generous to the people. So he wanted to change his image, and he heard about AJ, and AJ became his tailor. They brought him in. Ocho brought him in and introduced him. And I find that fascinating, because here he's trying to dress a politician, and then he realized this guy's the biggest drug dealer in the world. Nobody bigger than him. And the one thing the Colombian did, and especially Pablo Escobar, they stayed away from mobsters. They didn't want nothing to do with mobsters because they didn't want to get manhandled or intimidated by them, which they would have tried to take over. So now you have AJ with all the mobsters that he's dressing. He's going to dress Pablo Escobar because he wants to go into politics. And they made him the biggest drug dealer in the world. They backed him.
Escobar, as we know from the book, really liked them. I
know. That's what I'm saying. It's so crazy.
Right from the get-go, he was giving him kilos on credit. He could do no wrong. Of course, if he did wrong, one thing about AJ, he was an honorable guy. He paid all his bills. He did what he had to do, and he kept that secret that he was basically a cocaine kingpin, as described by the feds. If you're a kingpin, and they use that term, you're a big deal. He kept that hidden from everybody.
Well, he had to, because he knew one thing: the Savellas and the mob, then they would have killed them themselves.
Yeah, I know, but you know how difficult it is to do, because the people who you're selling the coke to can't shut up. Right. I mean,
but he wasn't. But see, you're selling. He wasn't selling to. He was selling to dealers.
Yeah,
but still, the dealers were on the street with the people.
Yeah,
he never let anybody know who his supplier was. He was very smart in the way he created
no kidding.
this. Yeah. Nobody knew about it. There was a handful of people that knew about it. Period. But because I was involved with so many people. Again, how are parallels? Because when they were talking about Joe Augusto and DeLuna and all these guys, because what people don't on the street know, the Savellas bought the Tropicana Hotel from Frank Costello and Joe Kennedy. They wanted out because they were getting bigger, and they didn't need the Gaming Commission was coming down on them to find out who the real owners were. So the Savellas bought it, and they put Joe Augusto and DeLuna in there to run it. I'm sorry.
But these guys, dealers get caught. Dealers get arrested. I mean, nobody flipped on them.
Well, I think if he stayed in it long enough, they would have. I mean, because he was getting
quite a while. There was one portion in the book where one of AJ's major dealers got busted, and they were friends. But friends in the drug business aren't friends. And he figured, as soon as you have an out, and AJ was frightened that this guy was going to flip on him, and he never did, never did. And he would have gotten a shorter prison sentence, but he never flipped on him. Such was the power of AJ, and it wasn't power through strength; it was power through just being a nice guy.
Friendships, yeah.
Yeah, they liked him, but in defense of that guy not flipping,
yeah,
the last thing you want to be in prison is a rat.
Well, it's with protection. I mean, people flip all the time,
No, excuse me. I'm telling you about something I know. Drug dealers, there's more drug dealers in prison than mafia guys. You flip on a dealer, they'll handle you in prison. And
who's to say that was ever going to go to jail if he flipped? Witness protection.
That's where they went. That came later. But really, when this was happening so fast, they didn't know what to do with them all.
Yeah.
And so, even the feds changed their policy, They were trying to track people who knew mob people that were selling drugs. They wanted to bust them first, so they roll over and get the mob involved with them.
Yeah.
That was the case they were looking for, and it didn't happen.
So, Jeannie, any more coke stories involving AJ?
Well, I know he did a lot of drugs and a lot of partying. He after his wife died, he kind of wasn't really wanting to be involved with any women for a long time, but then that took a big turn, and that turned on the heat for him, and he did get married several times.
7 to be exact.
Yeah.
Several.
At a short attention span, it appears. I don't know.
7.
But, yeah, he must have been very charming because he seemed to. But
he was very generous. That's what he was also.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like everybody just really liked the guy.
His personality was amazing.
He wound up with a bad cocaine Jones. And cocaine is not physically addicting. It's psychologically addicting.
Yeah.
Two different things. And he had a hard time breaking loose of it. He tried numerous times. He just couldn't do it. And to kill a cocaine habit, you have to get rid of all your friends who were doing cocaine. You can't associate with these people. So he was doing a lot of coke. And plus he had to be doing a lot of drinking. And he was sick and in bad shape. And then he meets Barry Seal, which helped his business, but didn't help his cocaine habit.
Right.
Barry Seal, I didn't know him personally, but I knew a lot of people who did in the DEA. Barry Seal was, if you were to think of a soldier of fortune type, this guy was a pilot, and he rented himself out to the highest bidders. Didn't care what he had to do. He was an adventurer. He liked that sort of thing. He got off on it.
Right.
He was smuggling weed to begin with, and then the cocaine phase came in, and you can once again transport a very little amount of coke as compared to a huge amount of weed.
And weed was in bales.
Yeah,
right.
and they used to drop it in the ocean in waterproof bales. But
right.
Barry Seal could befriend anybody. He was a very gregarious guy. His only problem was, and AJ mentions this in his memoir right from the beginning, this guy couldn't shut up, and coke didn't help that habit any. He just kept on running off at the mouth. And but they almost crashed in a plane once, taking a load back. The particulars escape me. Jeannie, can you fill us in on that?
Well, the crash that I remember was a crash they wanted to create.
Intentional, right.
Yeah.
Because the guy who owned the plane, which they didn't know, he reported it stolen because his friends and lawyers said, they're using your plane to transport drugs. And the FBI and the DEA have your wing numbers. So guess what he does? He reported his plane stolen a week before, and they were still flying it.
Why they were still doing it. That's right.
Doing it. That's why they had the crash.
Yeah, when they were in it.
But they had to do that to get rid of the plane.
Yeah, right. That particular scene in the book, AJ tells it very well. Barry Seal had experience flying, and he figured he wasn't going to crash the plane to die. He was going to crash the plane because he had to crash the plane. AJ, however, the way he explained it and the way Sal Manor wrote it, I mean, he knew he was going to die. This plane was going down, and he was going to crash.
Being a plane going down, and the guy saying, "Don't worry about it. We're going to land it. We'll land
it." Right.
How about I get out and you show me how? I'll watch from down here.
Barry Seal was actually calm.
Right.
And he says, just relax. It's all under control. Meanwhile, they're going down on a 45-degree angle at 300 miles an hour. And, AJ said, this is it. And then you start swearing to God. I'll never do coke again. I'll never smuggle coke again.
It's funny as you're saying that. There was a great dialogue. As you said, Sal wrote this so well because the one engine went out. And AJ was flipping out that we're going to crash. And he made him feel, don't worry about it. How many planes have I landed with one engine? And then he proved to him that he could do it. So he calmed down. But AJ probably never went on another plane again.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh my gosh. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's welcome. He also said that from that incident on, AJ said he took plenty of flights in private planes. If it was a prop plane, he never took a flight in a single engine plane ever again.
Right.
It always had to be at least two engines because he learned from Barry Seal.
Right.
Unfortunately, Barry Seal had problems of his own. He talked himself into a big problem. And once again, AJ was scared that Barry was going to drag him down. They were partners.
Right.
And Barry Seal winds up getting hit. He got whacked. And he was a young guy.
He was, as you pointed out, the guy would never shut up. There was a lot of people that were worried he was going to roll on all of them because he was dealing with.
And you know what? And it was odd too because they all liked him.
Oh yeah, he was very
like Barry, but Barry's got to go.
Yeah. Well, because they're all going to go to jail.
Think, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny. Well, great guy, Joe Barry. We had a lot of laughs. Go and have a great time. Yeah. But
we got to kill you.
We really can't take a chance.
Well, I sat around a lot of clubs with people like mob guys, and I said this early on, even to you, Pat. And what convinced me, really, as a young man, not to want to be in their club or a member of it. I would see guys on Sunday bringing 20,000, 30,000 to their rabbi. They used to call them rabbis, who were their sponsors to become a mobster.
Yeah.
And the guy would leave and they say, 2 or 3 more weeks with this guy, we got to kill him. And I'm sitting there. So wait a minute. He just hugged him, kissed him, took the 50,000.
It's like they're ordering lunch.
Yeah. It's a way of business.
What do they, and surprisingly enough, a lot of these mobsters are very religious.
Oh my God. Yeah. We'd come from church. We would come from church and go to the club on the river.
So let me ask you this question. I really never got a definitive answer. They're ordering the deaths of so many people, particularly if you're a captain or above. Are they religious because they think the more they go to church and the more they confess that they're going to get a pass when they die because they believe in God? What's the rationale here?
I'll bring up a conversation. I think I had it with you and you probably forgot it. I got so friendly with John Paul II. And we were out. He liked to drink his wine. We were out in Rome and he said to me, I got to ask you this question. And this is now after a year, 2 years, I know the guy. And I really love this guy. And he said to me, how do you justify what you do? And I only know a few things you did. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know what I'm talking about. I said, about taking a life? He said, yeah. I said, well, I'm doing God's work. He said, what? He said, I'm a disciple of the Lord. He said, can you explain that to me? What makes you think that you're a disciple of the Lord? I said, I killed a pedophile. I killed a drug lord. I'm getting rid of the trash.
Well, you are. I'm talking about people who order hits.
Well, that's what they're thinking. You're asking how they justify it.
Rationalize it.
Rationalize it, justify it, whatever the terminology is.
Yeah.
That's how they say it. He's a bum.
Right.
He's trash. Especially if you're a drug dealer. They wipe out drug dealers constantly.
Yeah.
Have no
All right.
conscience of it.
Well,
And
you know,
that's
Pat, when a while back, when is it Bobby was on, he just said that was the price of doing business. You know, this
yeah.
is how we, and it simplified it, made it sound like a business transaction. You know,
It is at the time, but you know, we all get old.
that's what I wonder.
Wondering what their mental process is when they get old and they realize what they've done. You know, The Irishman, the movie The Irishman, and you know, it's a movie. I understand that, and not a very good one. But at the end, Robert De Niro, they do like a one shot of Robert De Niro. He's old. He's in a nursing home. He's got nobody. He's sitting in his room all by himself. And they do a shot of him. It had to go for at least a minute, probably more. He's just sitting there. And he's staring off into space, but he's thinking. You can tell he's thinking. I mean, Robert De Niro. He's a great actor. He can twitch his eye and it has meaning. But I think they wanted to symbolize there in that scene that this is the end for him. His family deserted him. His kids won't talk to him. He's got no visitors. Nobody cares about him. And now he's ruminating, if you will, about all the people he killed. And I'm wondering if everybody goes through that at that stage of their lives, unless they're psychopaths, unless you get guys like Albert Anastasia who kill people for breakfast. You know, I mean, it just boggles my mind. I mean, in a time of war, you do what you have to do, and it still bothers you.
But I'm saying, see, something like you just brought it up now. You know how many mob guys said that? Said, well, I should be in an army uniform and killing people. That's God's going to forgive me. They're still people. I'm doing what I have to do to survive. You're doing in the army what you had to do to survive. That's how they justify it.
But at least the people that I'm killing or trying to kill are trying to kill me.
That's you. That's what I'm saying. They think the same thing. The people on the street are trying to kill them.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard this. I met more guys on their deathbed. Just one, as you know, recently. I was
sure, yeah,
31 days.
Yeah,
and he had no remorse at all, and he was a funny guy.
Oh, by the way, he was in the paper today.
For what?
Tony.
Yeah, for what?
Read today's post about an 85-year-old gangster.
Oh yeah, one of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
He smacked the
Ramanella.
Yeah.
Ramanella. Okay.
Yeah.
85 years old. He gets arrested for extortion and assault because he punched the guy. And it's on video. It's in today's post. He punches a guy.
His nickname is Ram. Ram is a boss.
Yeah. Okay. There was an $86,000 debt in dispute here, and the guy who owned it was called Club A, but it wasn't the original Club A. This was a steakhouse.
Right.
And he wouldn't pay him because it wasn't his debt. It was his nephew's debt. Anyway, long story short, Ram goes to our friend to put the icing on the cake, to tell him, I want you, Tony, we will not mention his last name, to go down to just to talk to this guy because of who Tony was. So I was just surprised to see his name in the paper. Even his name.
I am too. I right now, I wouldn't want to be that restaurateur at this second.
Well,
they're not letting that go.
He paid the debt.
Well, paying the debt and bringing people into the court, like that was stupid, and in the newspapers.
Yeah. He actually gave the video to the cops. The cops, that's public information now.
That's not over with, believe me. But to mention the guy that was very close to me without mentioning his name, I was with him at the end, and he said to me, "You know what? Think about it. Who the hell wants to go to heaven anyway? None of our friends are up there. I want to be
Somebody's saving me a seat in hell.
We'll be downstairs partying. Forget about it."
On that happy note, what do you say we go to a commercial, Mr. Rousseau?
Please, we got to earn some money while their building burning down next to me. You hear that? I love it.
Yeah.
The music of the night in New York. We'll be right back. And we know where you live. You know that by now. We're introducing family dinners again. As we all know, Sunday sauce is almost abolished. Nobody wants to be cooking for 5 hours over sauce. So go to CorleoneFineItalian.com. You'll see a choice of 4 great sauces and get back to the family. In fact, we're even introducing trivia parties and dinners. Come as your favorite character as the Godfather and have dinner. Remember, CorleoneFineItalian.com. It's all there for you. It's an offer you can't refuse. All right, we're back for the conclusion of the Taylor, AJ Pratt.
So AJ, this is from here on in, it has no similarities to you, but it's got a similarity to the movie Casino. AJ at this point is married 7 times. Apparently AJ didn't date. He just married people.
Well, he was romantic.
Apparently. I mean, you know.
He went, his last wedding was at the chapel, on the Elvis chapel on the Strip.
Was it?
Yes. And he said, why didn't you come to my wedding? I said, I wouldn't walk in that place. I didn't want anybody to see me coming out. His last wedding was the chapel, the little chapel. I forget the name of it. It's famous. Everybody went there.
It's called a little chapel, I believe, right?
Yeah. But it's so crazy.
But anyway, an Elvis impersonator marries you. I mean,
there you go.
Anyway, his 7th wife, he said, you know, I found my soulmate. Well, the other 6 were a soulmate too, but he never did forget Linda Lou. That was his real. I mean, they were young then. He was really in love. Anyway, Jeannie, you want to finish the story for us with the money?
Well, the money. You go with the money. I'm thinking about the chapel. Tell me where you're starting, and I'll jump in.
Okay. AJ,
we're really at the end, so maybe she should talk about the chapel. Once you talk about the money gone, that's
okay.
Close.
What about the chapel?
No. I was just thinking when you were talking about the Elvis chapel. I just found it so funny that he made all those clothes for Elvis, and that's who ends up marrying him on his last.
I know, it's deja vu. It's like,
but I mean, you know, look how far we've come. Anyway, he made the same mistake that the Robert De Niro character Lefty Rosenthal, was based on a real guy, Lefty Rosenthal, did with his wife Ginger, whose real name was Jerry. She was a real person. And in the movie, the Robert De Niro character, he's in love too, and he gives the safe deposit box authorization.
Yeah,
to
she
his
had
wife.
the key.
Yeah, who was played by Sharon Stone. You know, everybody's seen this movie, but she empties it out. Who knows how much was in there? She takes off, and AJ does the same thing. He was in love with a much younger woman. They got married, and he to prove his love, she was a co-signee on all his bank accounts, the safe deposit boxes. She wiped them out, $6 million.
You know, now that's the thing I couldn't understand. I questioned that even with the author. How, after all the money, he makes $6 million in a month. How come he only had $6 million left? He wasn't paying for it.
He was, first of all, at that point of his life, he was out of the cocaine business. He wasn't feeling well. He had a lot of health issues. But if you're using your own product, and I've seen this with numerous dealers, you know, you say, wow, this guy is doing very well. They're shoveling up their own noses, and it's gone. And you get very generous. I mean, I knew a guy who was doing high-end burglaries. I can tell you his name, but I'd rather not. He's a well-known guy. He was taking his friends on private jets to the Caribbean. A lot of drugs involved too. He was also dealing coke, but his deal was high-end burglaries. He was broke at the end of it all. He wound up doing 9 years in prison, totally broke. These guys have a way of lending money. When you're high, you also get, in addition to being very talkative, you get very generous. And since you have all this coke, give it away. You want a loan, you want money up front, just give it away. And who knows, partying in his house, what was stolen from him. The point is, he kept his stash, you know, and he had $6 million. And he woke up one day and it was gone. And he had murder in his eyes. And he talks about it in the book.
No, you got to tell the whole story, though, how he went to the bank right after his wife left.
Surprise.
I remember she needed her passport and she had the rights to go in there, but the banker didn't question that she was in there for a half hour. Don't take a half hour it doesn't take a half hour to get a passport out, and she left with a big bag. Hello.
And do you know how much $6 million weighs, even if it's
Oh, hello.
Even if
Yeah.
it's $100 bills, like
It's like
somebody
a
once
big
told
piece
me
of luggage.
uh, a single bill of U.S. currency is a gram. And so, can you imagine $6 million? You had to make a couple of trips to the car, I would assume. Anyway, he wanted to get it back. He wanted a whack. He wanted this. He wanted that. And all of a sudden, he said, all the hate, all the animosity. He says, what's the point?
I mean, at the end, as I read it, I wasn't there, but he did it. He didn't have a good ending. It was terrible.
No, he was very sick. And a lot of this has to do with organ failure. You do so much coke, your organs, and even though, he quit, 10 years ago, whatever it was, the damage is done. You wonder how Matthew Perry died. Well, we're going to find out once the autopsy results come back. But
I think they're just being kind right now, not releasing it. Everybody's taking the glory. The thing bringing that guy up, I can't believe how many people came forward a week, 2 weeks later to, let them know how much they loved him. Well, why did you care of him when he was there? I mean, they're all grandstanding on this guy's grave.
He died a lonely man.
What?
He died a lonely man.
I know. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like you're saying, where the hell were these friends, alleged friends?
Where were they?
But it's the same thing. There's the corollary with AJ too. He died alone. Those of you who want to take the time to look up this video, just put AJ Pratt video and you'll get it. It'll come up. I mean, he looked like, well, he was in his 70s. Jet black hair. I mean, jet black, like shoe polish hair.
Yeah.
Jet black mustache, long hair. His skin was pasty, and it was a cocaine use, and he just looked like something out of a
horror movie.
He looked freaking terrible, and he just passed away, 2016, I believe it was.
By himself.
Yeah, all alone.
2016, yeah, 2016 it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he got married again after the woman absconded with the money. He got married, and that when he died, he was still married to that woman. And I was thinking, I was going to bring this up to you, but I said, do we really want to do this? Have the wife on? I don't think so.
No. And she's executive producer of this.
Documentary.
The documentary.
Okay. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, she wanted the story told. She was the last one, and how people took advantage of him. And, I'm shocked myself because I knew the guy. And when we found out about the book, it wasn't really, nobody knows this book. That's why they're doing the documentary first, to make an audience for this, because the studio said, who cares about AJ Pratt, the tailor?
Until you hear a story.
Right.
That's what they're saying. So now they're going to let the world hear the story. In a year and a half from now, there may be a feature film.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. We gave you an insight into, of course, for 4 hours is going to be a lot longer than the 2 hours we did. There's so many ins and outs, and this guy had such a life.
Right.
But we're going to have the opportunity, because we tried to get him. Now today, I confirmed that he will come on. So in the next couple of weeks, we can ask questions, and if our audience is in the mailbag, send the questions you would like to talk to Sal Mann, who wrote The Tailor.
Did you ask our new best friend Sal Mann why he's so difficult to find?
I didn't ask him that because I didn't want to insult him. I just met him today. First of all, I didn't want to say you were investigating, trying to find out where.
I mean, I could find, there's not too many people who I can't find. I mean, I'm not tooting my horn here, but he's.
We're good at that.
I know.
I mean, how many people have you and I look for, John? You find them in 10 minutes.
I know that. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, this guy.
Now you know why I didn't want to say that to him, because he's going to say, "What were you looking?"
If he had a publisher, it would have been easy. You call the publisher and they'll set it up. But,
right.
I mean, there's a lot of Salvatore Manners in this country, hundreds of them.
Yep.
So, when you don't know how old the guy is or anything about him, I just gave up. Besides that, we had 2 good shows. We didn't need them.
So what do you say?
I've got a question. Sorry. What's his relationship to AJ Pratt? Do you know?
Just a writer.
No, he's a writer. He was a writer. The wife.
The wife. Okay.
The wife didn't vet him out. The producers there's a young kid who's the producer of this whole situation, and he's doing it to build this because he thinks this is going to be a great movie for him. He's the director.
Okay.
I would imagine, as I've seen in a lot of documentaries, that the last surviving person that was connected with the subject of the documentary gets a title, producer.
Oh yeah.
Producer. Doesn't mean anything. That just means she gets an extra check.
No, but that's what she needs right now. There's checks. Yeah. Hello, you died broke.
We all need those. That's right.
There you go.
Well, I hope they continue with that. I know. I did the book 2 times. I thought it was fantastic, and I loved hearing every bit about it. And I hope people go out and buy it and support it because it is a great story, and what a talented man.
Once again, the title is The Tailor by Sal Mann, and look it up.
Sal Mann.
Sal Mann.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good show. We wrapped up. I think we did justice to AJ. What do you guys think?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
we're not calling him a bad guy by any means. Yeah, he was a drug dealer. But I tell you, if you're going to line up drug dealers, this guy was a gentleman.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
He wasn't violent. He never hurt anybody. But I'm not making excuses for him, but you can tell what kind of a person he was.
Right.
To turn $1 million.
Yeah. No one ever wanted to get him in trouble. It sounds like he was just a person that
he got caught up in the moment.
But still, like Gianni says, caught up in the moment, and the moment in the cocaine business is a violent moment. Yeah. And he avoided it. He avoided it all. Not
all. He did have the incident on the boat that I won't even bring it up, but with a friend, but I want people to read the book. I don't want to spoil all the good stuff, but it is a great book, The Tailor.
I think it also helped that he was conducting business in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And you got to be really careful what you do there, particularly during those years.
Yep. All right. With that, say good night, and we'll see you next week. Write those cards and letters because we're doing a mailbag show.
Yeah, and once again, anything you want to know about AJ, questions you want to ask that we can't answer, Sal Mann could, and as Gianni said, he'll be on the show.
All right, perfect.
That'll be fantastic.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Gianni. Good night, Jeannie.
Yep. And for our world out there, thank you for tuning in. God bless you.
And now the end is near. It's time to face the final curtain. My friends, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, to which I am certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway, but much more than this, I did it my